So we have one more item, and we're going to talk baseball. Scoreboards.
Baseball season.
It's baseball season, and Mary, come on up. Since we've been in conversation for a little while now.
Good evening. We are with the Sports Boosters. I'm Mary DePalma. This is Amy Cronin, and thank you very much for your time on the agenda tonight. Dr. Brown, it's been many months since we had our first meeting about this. We met with the idea of taking an identified need that was already on the district horizon, something that would need to be replaced eventually, try to work together with the Booster Club to try to bring that need to fruition in a collaborative effort. At that meeting, we talked about a baseball scoreboard in large part because we are the only school in the league that has a scoreboard that doesn't function. We're the only school in the league that has a scoreboard that faces the wrong direction. And so our need at that time was to have a functioning scoreboard that would actually face the direction that everyone can see the score. At that meeting, we talked about the idea that if the boosters were able to go out into the community with some terrific parents, generous community partners, and some new money being infused through alumni donations, that if we could provide the money for the purchase of the actual scoreboard, that we were asking for the district to sort of join in to the effort to be able to install it. We're happy to report tonight that we come to you with the money necessary to be able to purchase the scoreboard, and this resolution asks for you to accept that donation and work with us in accepting the Romani donation and the responsibility for the installation of the scoreboard. I don't know if there's other questions on what this project entails, but
yeah, I think maybe some additional context as well. So, the sports boosters have been more than generous in working with our facilities and working with Dave and trying to identify. There are two questions that I understand in front of the board this evening. The boosters are asking for unless this has changed since the facilities meeting, right? The boosters are asking that they will purchase the scoreboard. The district would then incur the cost of installation. And so the question is, as a board, or is that a cost that we're willing to try to incur to find some monies to make that happen, in lieu of the donation of the actual scoreboard, which we have the figures. We can talk to folks between 15 and 20K, if I'm not mistaken. Listen,
We're actually around 11,000 now
for installation.
That's right, because we would be using the company that's actually selling the scoreboard. And I have
So
Paul here also because we've been working with BOCES to make sure that we have the right pieces in place, and also that we have to get the stamp of approval. And it looks like we're going to be able to go with that company, which is 11,000 instead of 20 to 25.
Great. That makes it all the more enticing. That's fantastic. The second issue is that there is a generous family donation, and the question before the board is the scoreboard would include identification and acknowledgement of that family donation and a naming. So it would be called, as you can see on the resolution, the Peter J. Romani Family Scoreboard. In my time in the district, it's not long, but as a 20-year resident, I'm not aware that we have done something like this previously, that we've offered naming rights for a donation in some regards, for be it a case, a scoreboard, a field. It doesn't mean we haven't named things. We definitely have done that, but it hasn't been oftentimes whether or not connected to sort of a donation. And so we are very much aware that accepting this generous donation and this opportunity, while valuable for the community, also sets a precedent. And so we wanted to make sure the board had a conversation about that precedent and what does that mean for us as a community to be thinking about how we may move forward or what may be the avenue. I'm also aware that timing is already not in our favor, right? That the baseball season is well underway.
We haven't played a game yet, actually, so there's plenty.
Fantastic. Well, wait till you see how slow the state is to get this thing installed. We'll talk to you in 2018. But the reality is that hoping to sort of, if we can find some agreement on this as a board, that we'd be able to try to move to have something be done quickly as opposed to trying to go another season. And for any board member who has not been to the baseball field, I highly recommend you go, or any community member who's not been to the baseball field, I recommend you go to take a look to see it is an ill-conceived, ill-placed, ill-functioning piece of equipment.
Right, until you turn it into the sunshine.
Right, exactly.
That's why it's tilted the way it is.
So,
but turn it into the sun, and I hope you have bright enough lights.
New boards, I think, are much better.
Yeah, but just say that's why it's canted the way it
yes,
is.
you'd like to be able to see the numbers too.
Yeah, I understand, but that's why it's canted the way it is.
So the resolution is here. part of it is just a conversation amongst the board to have some sort of dialogue to see where we, because the resolution actually assumes both these questions in one. So we're not voting on both questions, we're voting on the resolution. But those are the two questions before the board. And as someone who's been part of the facilities committee, I want to make sure that we understood what we're being asked to vote on.
Sean,
Additions from other.
right, Sean, since you're also the policy maven, does one action by the board does not create a policy procedure, correct?
It does not, but as I'm sure we know in
Creates
our
a
community, right, and a
Creates a
precedent is as powerful as a policy.
Just wanted to get that out.
That's just the reality, right? It's just policy.
We
It's
don't,
just practice.
we don't specifically we have a policy regarding naming, I believe.
We do have a policy
But
regarding
it does not really address this circumstance,
It does
correct?
not. It does not. And
What
so
is that policy? Never heard of it.
I will find it for you. Give me a moment. I think it's in we're in the board governance section. So I think it's the 1000 series. The fact that I know that's embarrassing, but we'll let it slide. I'll find you the exact number and get that back to you. We also have had some conversations. This was a couple of years ago, folks may recall, that we had our legal counsel come down and have a conversation with us in general about notions of acceptance of gifts and naming. There was a conversation at one point in time of having Coca-Cola buy the football scoreboard, or even the questions about whether or not we would allow advertising space on our ceiling, on our roof, for planes or whatever to fly by, right? And so there are some specifications that would limit us, but this is not one of them. We have the authority and the freedom, should we choose to make this happen.
At the facilities meeting, there was some talk that if the naming part didn't work out, you had a backup plan, right? That was like a fund, a matching fund kind of thing?
No, we're actually hoping to be able to launch with the naming opportunity, to be able to use that money to be able to launch another challenge, to infuse even more money into the effort. There's some other issues associated with the field itself that we'd like to address.
So then the question would be like, then does somebody want something else named in the field?
No, I think that's it for this situation.
Right. The obvious question for the board, okay, this is a $5,000 gift. So that's set the bar. If I want to give $5,000, I can get my name on something, and it's going to last for how long? I mean, so to the promise to the Romani family, I know initially it's throwing out the first pitch and certainly recognition for a period of time. Is there an end date on this gift? Is it got, Sweet Field is there?
Our assumption was that it would be for the life of the scoreboard.
Right, and so the scoreboard was there when I was in high school in 1974. So,
It shouldn't have been that.
so it's the same scoreboard, and it was there prior to that. So that's.
Work then?
Well, yeah, the boys played. It was fine. That was a long time ago, Mary. So.
And I don't see them here, and I apologize, but we do have renderings of the scoreboard as well that you can find in the last facilities meeting for any current board member who wants to go take a look at.
And we can talk about the renderings there in a second. Brad, go ahead.
Yeah, I mean, my concern continues to be the precedent of this. I mean, we accept gifts all the time here, and, there are a handful of them that add up to well more than $5,000 in a year. And so my concern has to do with, what is the Target Foundation going to want to do next? I mean, we accept a couple thousand from them every other month. Are they going to decide they want their name placed on something somewhere? Next week, we'll be accepting over $100,000 from IPEI. They've never asked us to put a name on anything, from theirs. And I also worry from the point of view of, to the extent that they've got donors within their large gift who gave more than that, are they now going to withdraw that in order to get their name on something? I'm concerned about that. And I don't know whether I should be worried about it, but I just, I worry about the precedent, because we do take gifts all the time, and sometimes they are greater than $5,000. And are we going to start hanging plaques and signs all over the place for that kind of thing? So that's the concern I've had about it. As far as the rendering, I would really prefer that the top of the sign said Ithaca High School Tatascore Field, and that the name of the family be at the bottom. But that'd be my preference.
that is something we talk about. Elder, go ahead.
I just want to reiterate Brad's point, having done this professionally for a few years, been a fundraiser. Having names on physical things that are not buildings that we know are going to be around for a very long time is challenging because things in the physical world change so often. So you might hear a whole lot of resistance, a lot of standpoints about why and how a name is adequate or appropriate. That's not what I'm saying. It's literally, naming things is a problem. And even though this is a big thing, this big thing can fall, right, or could disappear. So it's just something to think about. So it's not intention, it's just sometimes donors can't appreciate the burden put on the recipients simply because a name is written on something. It's just something to think about. We'll talk about it more. But it is a legitimate issue.
For, right, talk about it in a greater context. For this, Chris, you want to weigh in at all?
Well, I'm just going to reiterate what everybody just said. I love the collaboration. I love the fact that we're able to do this. I do struggle with the placement and that the name outshines Ithaca in little red on the scoreboard.
It's easy to fix.
That's easily fixed.
But
Well, to that
Yeah.
point, can you talk about that a little bit? The field is named for Joe Tatascore, correct? A long time ago, and there is a plaque. This does seem to overwhelm the naming of the field, which is obviously you can't play ball without the field.
Well, the
So-
name of the field appears on the back of the backstop, so as you drive by and as
Right,
you
right.
approach
Yeah,
the
yeah.
field, it's right there.
Right,
But
right,
we can certainly make that
So it
more
would-
prominent.
Certainly, I frankly like Brad's idea, and I know it may add a bit of a cost perhaps to the scoreboard, but it's like Sweetfield, Sweetfield is the bottom and the scoreboard is up top. I mean, it just as an example.
Absolutely.
And I think probably multiple board members would be more comfortable with that,
Sure.
because we're celebrating Ithaca High School athletics and the baseball program, and then certainly honoring the Romani family, but it's with the kids in Ithaca, well, frankly, they.
No, understood, no problem.
Sean, go ahead.
Yeah, I think that was one thing I would say as well, is that the ways in which, in terms of the visual aesthetic of how it looks, there's ways in which to identify either ICSD, the field, as well as giving credits to the family. The one thing I would say, I understand Brad's concern. We were fortunate to have 12 hours together in the car over the past 4 days to have some of these conversations.
Be a fly on the wall there, right? It's like, wow. Yeah.
No, I don't think you want any part of those conversations. But we were able to have some of this dialogue, and so in other words, I greatly understand the concern about the possible precedent that it sets. And I think the one thing, and Brad didn't say this, but I'm sure I would assume he agrees with me. We are aware that the Target Foundation asking for this is different than a local connected family ask, right? That there's a vastness. So part of this would be the acknowledgement of a family that's been in this community for quite some time, as opposed to a corporation. That does help me think about this slightly differently. With that being said, it still is a precedent-setting move.
But it is honoring a longtime staff member in the district, correct? And well, husband and wife,
Yes.
correct? I mean, from, I'm trying to think back, but really a family that was dedicated, staff that was dedicated to the children of the community, through their work and through their time. So, I'm certainly not, make the change and, I'm good.
About 55 years of combined service.
Right, exactly. So I think,
So can I ask a quick question? I'm sorry.
No, I was just
No,
going
please.
to say, yeah, I would really like to make this happen, but I wonder from a policy standpoint, or even just from the dilemma, next time somebody comes to us and says, you did that in this instance, and I want this, are we then caught up in having to have public discussion about why it was okay this time, but we want to say no another time?
just
Yes, we will.
write a big check, baby, and you can, we'll see,
Well,
Let's go ahead,
if
sorry.
I can just respond to that, I've also worked in fundraising for a long time too. And one of the things that, you know, this gift represents about a third of the cost of the scoreboard itself.
With the infusion of money through a challenge, it may reach 50%.
It could reach half. And so what is, you know, sort of standard practice would be to say, you know, 1/3 or more of the cost would, you know, be borne by, would be required in order to name, put someone's name on something. I have worked at institutions where if the gift is right, you will put plaques up in lots of different places. And so I do think actually this represents an opportunity. I like to see this as an opportunity for the school district rather than a problem. I think if there are people who are giving to the arts in significant ways, they should be recognized, frankly, if they're not.
Right.
And I think it obviously this.
If they wish to be.
If they wish to be, and if their gifts represent a significant portion of certain costs. You know, I think, you know, we recognize as an organization that, having just gone through the budget, it's kind of appropriate to be talking about this, that there are things that are needed in this district to provide that edge of excellence for our students, whether it's in athletics or in, you know, the work IPEI does through the enhancement programs, the fine arts boosters. There are things that cannot be funded through the budget, but that make this community, that because of the generosity of the community, make this a place we all want to be, to raise our children and have them attend these Ithaca city schools. And so I see this as an opportunity for us to establish a process through, as Mary has expressed to you many times, through which we can do that on the athletic side in a more intentional way to meet needs so that our student athletes have the benefit of the kinds of facilities they see at other places. Personally, I think the guy who put in the Maine Endwell turf field should put them in at all the stack schools so that those Maine Endwell kids don't have to play on a non-turf field ever. But that, you know, that's for down the road. But for the time being, I think there are things we can do. You know, we've started this with baseball, but there are other things that we will need to do for other sports over time, that this kind of process, now that we've done it once, I think can be successful and helpful.
Okay, Pat.
I had just, when Sean had mentioned this, the policy back in the 1000 series, I'm having admittedly fuzzy recollections of a conversation at the time in which we were talking about the possibility of, did someone approach the district for a donation in return for a plaque a couple of years ago? That's what's coming up to mind.
That has happened. We also had a conversation about naming a facility after a current employee.
Right. Right.
And it may.
That was not you, Doc.
Easy.
Although I hate to detract us from the glory of the 4000 series, we may wish to revisit this question. Maybe not for this gift, but in the future.
Right. And
Anne's job to tell us
if I could,
policy should do.
if I could ask, I do need to ask David a question. David, if we approve this today, do we have to go to state ed and all that?
Yes.
So each week is a week longer of.
This is not as long of a process.
Due to
Right, I just
the
wanted-
lack of the scope of the work, according to SED, and this is direct communication with them, this project would be streamlined. So it would be a matter of 2 weeks.
Thank you. I just wanted to get that out, Paul. Go ahead.
One question I have is that, is it possible, if we pass this tonight, to have a final approval, a vetting process of the design? For example, the size of the font, the placement, you know, because we looked at it tonight and said, well, you know, we prefer it on the bottom, but would there be another time to do that?
You decide that.
Yeah, it's up to
Right, it's up to us.
No, well, okay,
No, I'm
that's what I'm saying.
Of course we can, right? We don't have to ask anybody else.
Well,
We can
that's what I'm
decide that.
proposing.
You just
I mean,
volunteered.
No. I'm just saying, I think it would be a good idea to put that into the proposition.
But I think there's also a question, so let me get there before, we don't have to go there at that point in time, right? So folks are in a position, once there's board approval, you're in a position to purchase the scoreboard, or?
That's correct.
So in other words, ideally, that would be, if we gave a vote today, then we'd be on the process of trying to purchase that scoreboard.
Correct.
What would happen if we voted next Tuesday?
It delay, I mean,
It delays us by a week.
it's a short season, and
So fine, so that gets us back to what Ann's question is then, the possibility of making approval pending final approval of a design, right? But at least to get us down the path of doing some of these
so I
things.
can tell you that members of the Romani family are watching the live streaming and have said that the Tatascore name at the top, the Romani family on the bottom, is perfectly fine with them. And I'm sure that members of the Booster Club will be fine with all of the recommendations that I've heard here this evening. I can't speak on behalf of them, of course, but I don't see any problems in anything that the board suggested this evening.
I say, but have you met our board? They're gonna wanna see a final approval. So all that makes sense, but at the end of the day, you know, and I think when I'm speaking from some experience with our bond act, that we have been told some things and that have not seen plans, and then things have gone up that have been not to what the board's approval had been, or to the community's approval in that regard,
I would not
right?
expect you guys to,
You get a final rendering.
and it would take about 48 hours to do this.
Yeah.
And I would like to say, just to let everyone know, that as much as we think it will take 2 weeks, we've, now since I've taken over, and since July, this 2 weeks could be
They
2
don't
months.
open
I
them.
don't want you to.
No.
Yeah, they don't
you
open the
understand.
mail
I
in
worked
2
in
weeks.
the state of Virginia also, so I understand.
Yeah.
I didn't say anything, Sean, go ahead.
I'll wait. Sorry.
There you go.
Go ahead.
Can I just make one other comment
Sure.
while Paul is in the room? If you haven't been to the baseball field, and you have a chance on Friday and Saturday to see the team play, on whatever this is.
It's gonna be beautiful weather.
But,
Rob, what are you doing?
But,
Why would you say that?
It's gonna be nice.
but this field, and we have one of our athletes here, Dylan Morse, and he can attest to this, just not as I talk about it. But the condition of our field this year is better than it has been in a very long time, and that's because of Paul's crew.
Agreed.
Great.
They put in, they came in on a weekend to work with a group of parents to get that field ready in December, because we had miraculous weather in December. And so Paul, to you and your crew, from our athletes, and the families, thank you. Because they've done a really good job and really taken great pride in making that a field that we can all be proud of. So I just wanted you all to be aware of that.
Thanks, Ann.
I was gonna wait, now I won't wait. I also want to extend a thank you to Mary Turner De Palma for her tenacity.
Yes.
And for sticking with this. This has been, and not that we're finished, but we've been, you and I in particular, and I know other folks have been having this conversation for a long period of time at this point in time. And so, it's the slow move of bureaucracy, and we're trying to find some things out. We've learned some things about ourselves and our district as well. And so I think a lot of folks would have walked away pretty discouraged about 4 or 5 months ago. But for the good of our young folks, for the good of our athletes, with Paul and the facilities crew help, we've made some real significant changes. I've seen the changes to that facility. And as I told folks, it's time that the entire facility be brought up with the rest of our facilities across the district, right? That we really made a significant capital investment in our infrastructure facilities. And the idea about partnership, naming things not included, and I guess this will be on a policy committee agenda sometime soon, but that part will work out. So I just appreciate your tenacity.
Sean, thank you for saying that, but I have to be honest, I mean, initially, I think there were some people who doubted that we could actually, collaborate and cooperate, but at every step of the way, everybody that I've met with, and Paul's people in particular, but I remember the board seemed enthusiastic about the idea, at least in principle. I know there's some things that need to be worked out and some things that we would do better and differently in the future, and hope that we can actually create this partnership. But thank you guys as well for the enthusiasm. It's what's kept me going.
And Paul, I think we probably talked about this at facilities, but there will be some cash outlay from the district, and that probably will come from maintenance or one of your lines. It is not money that's coming from another part of the budget. It's not coming from salaries or benefits or a position somewhere. It comes from repairs, maintenance, whatever.
In the facilities budget.
From the facilities budget, there is, you have a bit of a room there, so you could do this. It's not going to impact, your operations or what you need for this next year.
No.
I'm just getting that
Absolutely.
on tape.
Yeah,
Okay.
absolutely. So with that being said, I could move at this point in time. I
Right.
move the resolution as stated on the agenda. I can't
Second.
find it.
Second by Maura.
Does that include the final design review?
Subject to
Uh,
approval of a final rendering.
I'm happy to make that a part of the assumed.
I would like that.
Do we want it as a group, or do we
No,
want
and
to
if it just
assign?
rotate
Or do
through.
we want to assign
Oh,
Ian to be our review?
Oh, no, I want to look at it as well. I have some
Just
suggestions.
asking.
Not that I don't trust you, Ann.
No, I don't want the front, are you kidding me? No,
You
no.
want me to vet the sign?
It's gonna be
I don't
highlighted
want to
green.
personally be that. I know, it's a group thing.
No, you set yourself
I mean,
up.
I might want to like do it like some decorative
Oh,
thing, you know?
the artist coming out, okay. So,
Glitter.
so are we modifying the language just to get down to it, or are we making that a?
Subject to a final
By
design
the
review
board.
by the board.
Yes.
Okay.
And that's added to the resolution language, correct?
Assume that's a friendly amendment for everybody, and just,
Right,
fantastic.
without objection. So with that amendment, with that motion and second, all those in favor? That is, there are no more, that's everybody, so,
You guys are awesome.
so you, thank you all, it was, it will be great.
4:30 on Friday, 11 o'clock Saturday.
Do you want this back?
Thank you.
Yes, please. We'll send you a new one.
No, thank you.
Right there, young man.
Thanks to the family.
Yes.
Yes.